I want to share a few quick housekeeping things about our HACCP plan templates that may help you in your journey towards HACCP plan transcendence. Most pages have a date of last update. Check to make sure you are using the most current version. They are typically updated in late spring or early summer. For example, the templates for next school year, that is school year 2024-2025, will have April, May, or June of 2024 listed on them, except for the few I noted exceptions. The ones you have been using this year will have April, May, or June, or potentially July of 2023. It is important to use the most current version each year for all of the pages because we make updates based on a variety of reasons, but sometimes for important food code or other regulatory changes. Your SFA may choose to keep some of the parts of the HACCP plan template electronic, as we mentioned earlier. This is fine as long as the following are still met. First, all of the information is completed and original copies are retained per record storage requirements. Second, managers, staff, and other employees who use the information know where and how to access it. Each section and all of the forms come with some type of instructions. Most of the forms have a few notes on the form itself, but additional instructions are also in the instructions or reference section of that part of the HACCP plan template. We strongly encourage you and your staff to read all of the instructions to make sure sections of the HACCP plan template are being completed correctly. Last but not least, if you have a question about anything in the HACCP plan template or your discerning eye catches something that you think may need to be fixed, please let me know. We try and look at the instructions first before reaching out. Please try and do that. They may just answer your question and save you an extra email or phone call. These plans are working documents that we review and update each year. In addition to correcting a few minor grammar and spelling issues, there are a few changes to note in this year's upcoming Transported Meals HACCP plan template. Key updates you'll want to note include, and you can disregard this first one, the cooling practices, since there is no cooling information in the transported plan. And again, I will update this slide to reflect that for the recording. You also want to note that we discussed the placeholder and instructions for filing environmental health or those food inspection reports, food establishment inspection reports in Part 3 from your caterer or food vendor. The updated language in the hand sink assessment, which includes that footnote to make it more clear about what is expected in assessing the water temperature. We've also provided more detail in the instructions in Part 3, but essentially you don't need to measure the temperature each time unless your local procedure says to do so. We've clarified how often the food safety checklist for employees needs to be completed. We want to make it clear that this needs to be done each year for all food handlers, even if they are not new for that school year. It's also an important refresher that can be done as part of your back to school training. We've also added a place in Part 5 to indicate if your recipes are kept electronically, as we know many schools now use electronic software for storing recipes. Last but not least, I want to give you a few tips and pointers to help avoid HACCP plan and food safety findings. With the help of your central office or your school nutrition programs office, put together a new HACCP book or folder for each school year. You may not need to print everything, but make sure to download the new copy each year and use it for that school year. Do also keep the old versions on file for 3 years plus the current year. Make sure all areas of the HACCP plan template are completed annually. That includes Part 2A, 2B, any monitoring logs in Part 3, Part 4 forms, and any other areas. Again, Part 2B only needs to be revised as information changes, but please keep the original version before you make any changes. What I advise is maybe if you've handwritten on that, and you want to continue to handwrite, make a photocopy of the original version, and then you can mark out and change information on the copy that you can use for the next school year. This is so that you don't lose the original information because, as you know, we do have those record retention requirements for keeping records for 3 years plus the current year, unless your local procedures are more strict. Also, keep in mind that all school food authorities should fully complete the HACCP plan templates with all required information and make sure to follow the procedures to have a fully functioning HACCP plan in place. To make sure the areas needing to be completed are done accurately and correctly, make sure to read and follow the instructions for completing each section or log. Note and follow any local practices that are more strict. If you have any questions about how to complete a log correctly, please feel free to contact me or your school nutrition consultant. Keep copies of the latest food establishment inspections, those environmental health inspections, on file from your caterer or vendor. You will need to have at least 2 different inspection reports for each school year by the end of that school year. If you only have one close to the end of the school year, contact your caterer or vendor about another inspection. Also, make sure the most recent score is posted in a location visible to the public, such as the cafeteria or eating area. Even if you are not a permitted food establishment, all school nutrition administrators in North Carolina are required to have a certified food protection manager certification. Please make sure it stays current. They are good for 5 years and should have an issue and/or expiration date. There are several organizations that provide opportunities to get this certification, which we've already mentioned. Safe Plates through NC State University and the ServSafe program are 2 of the most commonly seen certification courses in our state. Lastly, and most importantly, follow safe food handling practices. Make sure you are handling food safely as described in Part 1 of your HACCP plan, those prerequisite programs and safe food handling procedures that we mentioned. If you have any questions, use Part 1 to help answer them. If you still aren't sure, contact me or your school nutrition consultant. Keeping good records and logs is important to support that you and your staff handled food safely, especially in the event that someone gets sick and thinks that your school nutrition program or kitchen may be to blame.